Using a distributed inventory model is absolutely fantastic and effective to support same-day, next-day solutions. But if you're doing it at a cost of significantly increased inventory, it might not be the greenest decision.
Hello and welcome back to the Sustainability Sessions with Linworks. My name is Georgia Laybourne. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Linworks, and I am absolutely delighted to have one of our really special partners with us today, a gentleman by the name of Daniel Weiss from ShipBob. And we are going to be talking about the last mile and those pesky green slots that have now cropped up as we as consumers try and book our deliveries. We're going to be talking very much about fulfillment, what options are available, how retailers can manage their inventory more effectively to effect sustainable fulfillment options. And Dan is going to share all of his insight for us. Dan, welcome to the show. And can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Well, thanks, Georgia. I've worked, pretty much my entire career, 25 plus years at the intersection of supply chain technology and transportation, working to use information and better operating processes to make sure we've got products in the right place at the right time. We have efficient and effective transportation methods to get products from where they're being stored to where the customer is, and to make sure that we're not just managing that outbound fulfillment accurately, but we're managing that full product life cycle, including the returns and after sale functions from a transportation operations standpoint as best we possibly can.
Well, my hat goes off to you, because I honestly think that this is definitely where the rubber hits the road, and it's the most stressful part of retail fulfillment is the transportation element. So what got you into transportation in the first place, Dan?
When I was in university all those years ago, I knew I wanted to work in operations. I knew I wanted to, impact international trade, and so I studied international trade and operations management, and then went on to work at a small freight forwarding company in Alaska and in Seattle, which is where I was from, where we supported the Alaskan fishing industry primarily, getting all of the products, supplies, and components that were needed to run a fish processing factory. Those factories were built on ships, and very large ships, and they were fishing in the middle of the Bering Sea or off the coast of Chile, and so you had all of the problems of a regular factory, where you had to bring products in, you had to have supplies, you had to have all your distribution. But you then had the added complexity that the primary supply, fish, you had to go find, and you usually found those fish in the far reaches of the globe, and there wasn't a whole lot of infrastructure to support the transportation industry, functions to support the factory, and then you had to get that product to your end customers, and so, as a learning ground and a place to cut your teeth on transportation, I had every single problem that you could possibly have. And I learned very, very quickly that the information about where your supplies were, where your customers were, in my case, where your factory was, because it moved, you had to know all of that and be able to create a very flexible and adaptable solutions. And the more information you had, the easier it was to adapt.
That is absolutely fascinating. And what credentials you have for running this function that you now have at ShipBob for the retail industry, because that's what we call time before the mast in the sailing world, isn't it? You cannot replace hardcore experience. So quick question before we get into the sort of middle part of the interview. What was the sustainability demands back then? Were they as prolific as they are now? Were they starting to appear? What was the state of play around the green initiative?
Green initiatives didn't exist back then in the same way they do now, but the sustainability was very prevalent. in that time, we weren't so much focused on like how sustainable we were in our fuel consumption or in how we were transporting product, but we were very, very much focused on sustainable fisheries. And is the source, the primary function of the industry, something that we could maintain, and there was a rush for overcapitalization in the fishing industry, similar with our ocean transportation industries, and we needed to have both regulatory change and a mind shift within the industry around how you would attack and allocate the very, very finite resources to make sure that there was enough for companies to survive, as well as for the industry to thrive.
I love the fact that you mentioned the sourcing side of sustainability, because I think sometimes in our bid to reduce, energy outlay and all that kind of thing, that we kind of forget about that whole sourcing element of the green movement that is so important. So fast forwarding to today and this, consumer driven world that we live in, you and I, catering to the demands of retailers, the need for speed and persistent demand for same day has driven this industry to succumb to the customer's bidding completely. We now lay on this plethora of solutions. You want it tomorrow, you can have it tomorrow. You want it today, you can have it today. Are we right to bend over backwards and cater to the consumer in this way?
It really depends on how you solve the problem to meet that customer demand. And that's going to be different by geography and in region. How you support same-day delivery within the UK, for instance, is going to be very different than how you solve it in the middle of Wyoming or the west coast of the United States. It really depends on, can you operate that same-day network, a scale and efficiency that does not result in fundamentally empty transportation miles, and using services that to move the product that are more costly and more damaging to the environment. So if you're operating the same day network from Louisville, Kentucky, or Memphis, Tennessee, and using a next day air, same day, next flight out solution, that might be right for critical parts, but it's not going to be the right solution for apparel or for food or for other same day more consumer driven demands. But if you have a fulfillment operation in the heart of New York City, in London, and you can route your trucks efficiently, and you're not doing point to point delivery, you're still doing a multi-stop routed delivery, you can achieve that without adding a lot of miles, without sacrificing density and capacity. And as you're doing that, and if you approach the problem with that mindset, you're going to be able to do it without further damaging the environment any more than what you would do using a traditional fulfillment. And in some cases, you can actually do it with a lower green footprint, because in those super high dense areas, you have the option of having delivery by bicycle, delivery by electric vehicle, that you don't have in areas where you have to drive for 50 miles from a sort center to get into your delivery market, to then deliver your packages and then to get back to your sort center. And so it really depends on your order density and not just your, as a merchant, order density, but the order density of the carriers that you're using and the network that they can support. And a lot of that depends on who you choose to use as a fulfillment provider, because most merchants, don't have the density to do it themselves, right? You need a partner to aggregate that volume and pull it together.
I'm very conscious of the fact that we sort of started out talking about consumers, and of course consumers are the customers of the retailer, which in return is our customer. You and I are both serving the retailer. So the responsibility is firmly on their shoulders to decide whether or not they do respond to the consumer's bidding in this way. So what does ShipBob do, and what steps are you taking specifically to encourage retailers to embrace a greener footprint and to make sensible decisions when it comes to those fulfillment options?
I want to start by saying the greenest footprint is going to be the one that is using the least amount of product that's wasted. So before we talk about transportation solutions, we need to talk about the buy decision on how much product to source, and then tied with that decision, where to place it, right? And using a distributed inventory model is absolutely fantastic and effective to support same day and next day solutions. But if you're doing it at a cost of significantly increased inventory, it might not be the greenest decision. Having said that, we've built tools to help our merchants model that decision and how much they should buy and where they should ultimately place that inventory. And ShipBob has a fully integrated distributed network that allows you to have inventory around the globe and staged throughout the United States and throughout Canada to make sure that you're as close to the customers as possible. And where that makes even more sense is when you think about it from an international standpoint, right? Breaking down borders and barriers. So we have tools to help merchants decide, how much they should buy. We have our inventory placement program, so they can buy and aggregate that buy and bring product into one of our nodes in our network, and we'll automatically and efficiently distribute that inventory so that it's close to the customer and in-region fulfillment as possible. For merchants that don't want us to make the decision on how much to place where, and they've got their own tools and functions to make that decision, but they don't have the density and capacity to move the product, we have tools in place that allow them to, dictate, here's where I want that inventory to be placed, but using ShipBob's transportation networks so that it's not, 3 or 4 pallets of product, going air freight from China to 6 different destinations. It's, an ocean freight movement, consolidated container going from China to the West Coast of the United States. And then we're very efficiently moving that product in market within the United States or in market around the globe.
This is a fantastic discussion, because what I'm hearing here is you are not just taking a Band-Aid and applying it over a gaping wound. You're going back to the source of the injury, which is the proliferation of inventory in order to facilitate that fulfillment. But what you're offering is that network that gives them that proximity to the customer and those transportation options that will be of a greener nature once they get round to that point of the supply chain, which is actually way more than I had realized ShipBob offered.
Thank you for that. And we've worked really hard on making this happen. It's not an easy task. There are very few companies out there that will offer a distributed model where they'll help the merchant actually get it into the markets. And most of those companies out there don't do it for omni-channel fulfillment. And so that's the other piece that I think ShipBob is doing differently than the largest fulfillment companies out there for most merchants. I'll just Amazon as an example. Amazon is a fantastic company, don't get me wrong, but they are solely 100% focused on e-commerce fulfillment and direct-to-consumer fulfillment. They don't do retail fulfillment. They're retail replenishment. They don't support that B2B sale unless it's buying an aggregate off of their platform. And ShipBob is allowing our merchants to take that consolidated inventory and use it for direct-to-consumer sales, use it for retail fulfillment sales, dropship sales, and again, making sure that your aggregated buy is appropriate for the sales plan that you have, and that inventory is positioned, so that it can be delivered to the end customer, whether that's another business or to a consumer cost effectively and with the lowest environmental footprint possible.
It's a really impressive proposition that you've outlined, and clearly, ShipBob themselves are a relatively substantial organization. So let's just talk about your organization specifically in terms of how you as a company tackle that balance between being the biggest, being the best, being the quickest, and offering the most value for money and pushing green initiatives. Where do you strike the balance on all of those different levers that you have to consider as a businessman? What comes first, the customer, the environment, the profitability?
The good news is these things are not 100% mutually exclusive. One of the things I said at the very beginning was it depends on how you deliver green initiatives in your green transportation solutions. A lot of the opportunity to deliver a very effective same day or next day network depends on the fact that you have some amount of scale. And so if you're a small merchant, you don't have that scale. You can't have your inventory of 100 units strategically placed around the globe effectively and operating in multiple warehouses, because the cost of operating the warehouse and the cost of maintaining those transportation relationships and the daily pickups, that those middle mile costs would just explode in your face. But ShipBob has done is focused on doing two things really, really well, right? And that is really servicing merchants of all sizes with their fulfillment needs. And so you can be what we would consider a growth, a very small entrepreneur. It could be you and an idea and a handful of products, and we will take merchants that are of that size, and we'll bring on merchants that are mid-market merchants with hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, retail sales, and we'll bring on enterprise merchants that just need better tools and better service to get and reach their customers, and we will, we're laser focused on providing our merchants with the best possible fulfillment experience. And because we can do that for merchants of all sizes, what that allows us to do is it allows us to bring solutions that, the enterprise, the Fortune 500 companies of the world would have that the smaller merchant wouldn't. And we can bring those to those merchants in an aggregated way and support them. And so how do you balance scale, size, and a green initiative? The largest companies are generally slower to change, but they are oftentimes much faster at executing within a well-oiled machine. And what we've tried to do is bring that efficiency of that well-oiled machine to companies of all sizes. And we are working to adapt quickly to the changing markets. And so we still have, while we're a 9-year-old company, we still very much have an entrepreneurial mindset. We don't have the tech debt and the heavy asset infrastructure that a lot of fulfillment providers would have, and so we're able to be more nimble in how we approach the needs and the solutions that would benefit our merchant base.
And I just think that nimbleness and agility and ability to pivot is so important in today's market. So hats off to you guys for maintaining that entrepreneurial spirit. Couple of final questions just to finish us off here. When you think about your customers, so not the consumer, let's come one step closer to home. When you think about your customers, are they putting pressure on you to scope greener capabilities and scope greener paths for them, or is that still a way off?
We definitely see pressures. Part of that pressure is rightfully placed, and some of it is just trying to adapt to the pressures that those merchants those merchants' customers are putting on them. We constantly get asked for same day solutions, and we will provide same-day solutions where we can do it in an environmentally safe way, and where there's the density to do it in a cost-effective way. Customers and merchants, they don't want same day at any cost. They want same day at cost of the product, and so how do you balance that? How do you push back? How do you educate the merchant on what is a reasonable expectation? We get pressures for green packaging, which we support. We get pressures for using less of a carbon footprint. We have solutions around carbon neutral solutions, on carbon offsets. It's not dictated by the customer because we can't offer it everywhere, but we will, wherever possible, use electric vehicles and sustainable delivery practices where the density allows for it.
One of the things that stands out for me there, and I kind of want to encourage our market to realize this. When you have a ShipBob or indeed a Linworks of the world who's working with multiple different merchants every single day to solve their solutions, there's sometimes some insight we can bring, isn't there, Dan? Insight we can bring. I sometimes think we get lumbered into that kind of, they're a vendor category, they're trying to sell us something. But actually, there's some superb experiences that I think we have the opportunity to pick up with all of the variety of companies that we work with.
There are, and there are opportunities to balance things too. One of the biggest challenges that we see in our inventory placement is where products are sourced. A lot of products are sourced in Asia, but not all. And we see products sourced, out of Europe and out of the United States and out of Central America. And one of the largest costs in transportation networks is deadhead miles. How many miles are you driving with less than optimal, less than full loads, and how do you get your transportation equipment back to where it needs to be to take the next full load? And so it's through one of the things that ShipBob has been working on over the last 2 years is really how do we reduce the number of deadhead miles? How do we balance our network? How do I encourage my sales team to fill up the channels that are going to complement the existing merchants that I have in place so that we're operating at a more efficient model in a way that supports our customers? And one of those very easy places to point at is returns processes. To send a driver out to pick up a package at someone's home, to then bring it back all the way to the originating facility, which might be across the country or might be across the globe, it is really expensive. And so one of the things we've worked on is like, how do we partner with others in our industry to have drop-off points that are local, so you don't have the driver going out to pick it up. The merchant can drop it off whenever they're out and about anyways. How do you bring that product back into not the facility that it originated from, but the closest facility that can handle that product? And how do you then make sure that you're taking that product and it's being repackaged, graded, refurbished, so that it can be resold instead of just tossed in the rubbish bin? And that returns process is super important.
It is, but also in transportation in general, partnerships, you mentioned the word partnering. It's such an opportunity for the industry because my empty mile could be your delivery mile.
Exactly.
And, if we can work together collaboratively, I think the network effect in transportation is really, really palpable to save a lot of money, but also to have a positive impact on the environment. So lots of work to be done for sure in that area. Now, Dan, I'm just going to switch gears a little bit to wrap us up here because I want to talk to Dan, the consumer. As a discerning individual who's been in this industry for a long time, what are your must-haves when you embark on a purchase? Do you have anything specific you look out for from your chosen retailer?
I do. I think the first thing is product quality. I loathe buying product, apparel in particular, that is not going to sustain the test of time and is fast fashion. That to me just it isn't the right approach. I want something that is I'm going to wear for a long time, or I'm going to use for a long time. It's going to operate. It's compatible with other items I already have. And where the merchant is going to stand behind the product, preferably in a way that is local to me. So if it's a tool or a computer or any sort of electronic device, can it be repaired? Can it be repaired locally? If it breaks, is it going to be replaced? And if it's replaced, is the original one going to be refurbished, or is it just going to be tossed in the rubbish bin? So product quality is number one. My son works at the farmers market in San Francisco, where we live, and he works for a woman-owned sustainable organic farm, and the farm is 60 miles outside of San Francisco. And so when we think about like the food we eat and how that's grown, we're very, very focused on the quality of the product. Is it what I want to eat, and is it grown and produced in a way that aligns with my ethics, and then also how much does it cost, and how is it affecting my local economy, and how much of a carbon footprint does it have just to get it to me and store it and so that I can consume it.
I think it's going to be all over to your place for dinner the next time I'm in San Francisco. It sounds as though you've got some really fresh food coming in your direction.
We are very, very blessed. San Francisco and California in particular is a great place to have sustainably grown food and make sure it's there available year-round.
I think this product quality that you mentioned is a fantastic must-have to have when you are embarking on a retail journey. So thank you for sharing that particular option with us. Dan, anything that you'd like to wrap up with before I close out this month's session?
The two things I would leave any merchant with is educate yourself. If you go back to the very beginning of the interview, I learned a lot about my role and my job in a forced education, around product placement, around the industry, and around what the information told me about what my customers' needs and patterns. Take the time and educate yourself so that you can talk confidently with your customers and your suppliers about what your needs are, and then take the time to educate yourself on your partners and what their capabilities are and how those capabilities align with what your needs are. Not all partners are the same. ShipBob probably isn't the best solution for some merchants, but we're the right solution for a lot of merchants. And when you look at under the hood about who your fulfillment provider is, what capabilities they bring, how you're going to engage with the environment around you, your consumer base, your suppliers, and how they can react to your growing needs and can they grow with you. There are very few companies out there that can do it as well as ShipBob. And with a shameless plug, if we're not the right company, I would be the first person to tell that to a merchant. Our sales team hates that, but at the end of the day, it's about building the relationship and building the trust, and we will be the right solution at some point.
And there's no point selling something to somebody that's not going to resonate and hit the nail on the head. So I totally commend you for that position. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend some time talking to you to you. I'm definitely going to take something from you. I need to do some more research myself into ShipBob because you've just outlined a much broader set of capability than I had been aware of. So as your partner, I promise you that I will get myself educated to ensure that I'm upholding the virtues of your organization when I speak to our customers. But thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.